So now do you guys see the July AI workshop one?
Yes.
All right. And you see my great AI image of a robot at the beach, right? At a cabin. Come on,
Oh,
that was
yeah.
good stuff. AI isn't that great yet, so he's just walking, but he is running into the water. For those that don't know, I'm Rod Holom, butt kicker of cyber criminals, evangelist of AI, destroyer of slow networks. So our top is 6 months. We're talking about ChatGPT 4.0 Mini, which was a huge cost reduction, and how you guys can actually utilize that. We're gonna go into Llama 3.1, which is a free model that Elon or Zuckerberg released. So Meta is tied to the Facebook universe, and they have 3 different models, and all of them are pretty powerful, and they completely open source these models. Elon Musk this week flipped a switch on a 6 exaflop supercomputer that's 4 times larger than the world's second largest supercomputer. And we got I'll give an update on the Copilot Plus PC. The update is basically, it's nothing fancy about that Copilot Plus PC right now. It has a neural processing unit, which is supposed to be really great with AI. However, we can't get any of the models that we've tried to actually run through the neural processing unit instead of the standard CPU. And we've spent extensive time looking at this. So it's a really nice, powerful computer. I'll just give the update now. It's a really nice, powerful computer, but as far as the AI Wonder Tool, not quite there. So it's more or less a $2,500 computer that's about as good as $1,000 one. So that's the update. So and then we'll go through some of the low cost effects that Cooley Tech is using some of these AI models on. From an application perspective, if you want to see how to build a PowerPoint presentation with AI, I'll hop in there and hands-on with ChatGPT 4.0 and use it in the Grok with the Llama 3 models. So the Musk data center 400% larger than the previous ones. And to put in perspective, so 6 exaflops, even most computer geeks don't really understand what on earth an exaflop is. So we're going to go through and just break that down a little bit. But he's utilizing this computer here to go ahead and train the world's largest AI, which is anticipated to release in December. And this here is probably 10 or 20 times larger than even 4.0. Hold on, we're going to admit one other. ChatGPT 4.0 was trained on.
The data set larger, you're saying?
No, the processing power.
Okay.
So to visualize this, if a single grain of rice is a light switch from a single bit, we'll escalate that up there, right? A kilobit is about a bowl of rice. A megabit is about a small bag of rice there. A gigabit, and most of you are familiar with gigabytes on your computers. That's how you measure how much. Most of them have about 500 gigabytes. That's equivalent to about a 50-pound bag of rice. And a terabyte is about a small room full of 50-pound bags of rice, if we're talking about from a size perspective. So when a lot of you are looking at your computer processing power, you're looking at it in the gigahertz range. Processors on local computers aren't quite into the terahertz range, but that gives you a general idea. We're looking at, from a processing power, about that of a large bag of rice or a small room full of rice is where we're at right now. To continue the visualization, a petabyte is a city block full of rice bags. An exabyte is a large city covered with those. And a zettabyte is the entire United States covered in those. However, you'll probably quickly identify we haven't got to flops yet. A yottabyte is the entire planet Earth covered in 50-pound bags of rice. And to get to a single exaflop, that is every planet in the solar system covered in bags of rice, that each individual grain of rice represents a single bit that is being utilized. So this computer that Elon Musk is flipping the switch on, and right now the largest one is about 1.2 exaflops is how large the largest one is. So the one that he's training his AI on is 6 exaflops. So 6 solar systems full of rice, with every single rice representing a single bit of data that's moving up and down. And this computer is anticipated to run for 3 months to train this next model that he's planning on building. So that's pretty big, right? We'll assume everyone said yes. So let's go. We're going to go into some of the new models that have came out too. So we have 2 big models that came out this month. We have the 4.0 Mini and we had the Llama models. So last month we talked a lot about Claude 3.5, and we gave a little bit of a talk on what a MMLU score is and You kind of see those versus 4.0 originally. Here's the new Llama model, the Llama 400 billion parameter 186. So this here is think of this as a score on how they're grading these AI models. And there's a number of different metrics that we can use, but we'll just use MMLU just to keep it a little more surface level. It's you get a rough comparison of where it is. So about 80 to 90 is about where most modern day models are from a capability perspective. So ChatGPT, the 4.0 mini that just came out, it actually was a decrease in its actual performance from the 4.0 model. However, it's not a huge decrease, and we'll get into the benchmarks of that. But what is huge is the cost. So for every million tokens, it costs 15 cents per million input tokens and 60 cents per million output tokens, compared to 4.0, which is $5 per million and $15 per output. So this is a huge magnitude of difference. Even if you're using GPT 3.5 Turbo, and the 3.5 Turbo model was in November of 2022. That's the model that brought AI to the forefront of everyone's brain. It's everyone thought this was incredible. The AI age is here. So this was nowadays considered a very low-end model, and that one, with its optimization, it was still 50 cents per million. So this new model, which is much more capable to that of 4.0, is a third the price of even the cheap GPT model. Here you see versus Claude Sonnet, which we talked about last month. So there's that $3 per million token versus 15 cents per million tokens. So that's a 20 times reduction in cost. Now, most of you that are utilizing AI are probably utilizing it from the prompt where you're paying $20 a month. You log into the tool or using the free tool, and that tool is letting you do this. But if you get into the world where you're using the APIs, or the big thing that this opens up to is data engineers and software developers can now start utilizing these cutting edge models to analyze everything from tickets to emails and you can do so at a very cost effective rate. From a performance perspective, here you see Sonnet 3.5 versus 4.0 mini. So Sonnet 3.5, which is the one we talked about last month, still outscores it. It's at about a 90 in the MMLU score. However, GPT 4.0 is not that far off. It's at an 82, which 3 months ago, 82 would have been cutting edge. So this model is a fraction of the cost. And here I go and break down the cost a little bit more. Hopefully everyone can see that all right, but there's a lot of data in there. But here we have on the top 4.0 mini with the 82 MMLU score, GPT 4.0, which is an 88, GPT 4, which is an 86, and GPT 3.5 Turbo was a 70. So here you see it's significant. And think of it when you go into college. If you get a 70 on a test, yeah, that's about a C, right? And 82, that's about a B. So while there isn't a huge difference in numbers, emotionally, whether you get a C or a B, that feels a little bit different, doesn't it? If your kid comes home and they go, hey, I got all C's or I got all B's, you feel a little bit different on the inside, don't you? So this here is very similar to that because 100 is a perfect score. So the closer these get to 100, so as we see 90, we're going to see 91, 92, 93. It's going to be harder and harder to get those last couple percentages as we work our way to 100. So a 70 to an 82 is a big jump there. But your input costs, you see 15 cents or $30 per million, $30 per million, or 50 cents per million. So these are where the costs break down that it just gets a huge cost reduction.
If Sean had a comment, he just said for general users, no change. For business purposes, that's use of API or integrate this huge cost savings to the bottom line. So just wanted to share that comment.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting that. But it will also offer, as these software as a service apps come out there, they're now able to give people for free or by ad revenue or other tools capabilities that before would have just been unable to be affordable. So all these apps that people are paying $5, $10 a month for, you're going to start seeing now they have the capability to provide a lot more value to the end user. So in the next 3 months, 6 months, we're going to see a flood of new tools and capabilities that were always there. They were just they were too costly to be able to provide to individuals. So this here is the Llama model. Now this model is actually 100% free. We've gotten it running upstairs, the 8 billion parameter one. This is there's an 8 billion, a 70 billion, and a 405 billion. So we have the 8 billion model running locally, and we'll go through some of those metrics here in a second. But these models here don't have any cost. If you have the hardware, it'll just run locally on yours forever for free. So using that same MML students, this one's scoring about an 88. So we're much closer to that 90 level that we're seeing in those cutting edge models, like the GPT-4 is 85. So this one was completely released from free from Facebook, that everyone can go download it and run it. And just like any of the latest video games, you need the hardware strong enough to run it. But if you have the hardware to run the video game, you can play the video game. On these AI models, if you have the hardware to run it, you can use it for free.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
So we have
Can you
a
repeat the
high-end
question?
laptop
Can
can run
you
the
repeat
8
the
billion
question?
model one. The 70 billion one, even with so we have like 64 gigs of actual RAM, and yeah, we can't run the 70 billion one. It's too large, and most think without a large data center, you won't be able to run the 400 billion unit. Because if you go back to that initial one I talked about, most of our computers are at the gigahertz range of processing power. Well, these models are being trained in the exabytes. So we're playing around with a single bag of rice, and they're playing around with solar systems full of rice. So it's just a huge gap. So unless you have probably even a couple $1 million worth of computer hardware, you might be able to run the 405. But you can also go and rent server time on some of these servers. Like I don't know if Microsoft Azure has this capability, but there are server farms out there where you could rent it to run it for like 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. You basically just rent time on these servers to run those type of things.
Hey, can you repeat the question? What was the question there? Just because we couldn't hear it.
Oh, the question was, what type of hardware is needed to run some of these free ones? So the 8 billion model here. So here you see the fourth column over, the one that gets on the MMLU score about 66. That one most modern new laptops can run that model locally on their computer, and it runs it at about the speed of human types. So if you've gone to any of these online models, they are going way faster, and you type your question there and you get like a page of text. If you run on your local computer, this 8 billion model, well, you can see it typing at about the speed of a human type. That's about the processing it does on it.
And then Sean had a question. Do the PCs require higher end video cards to run the AI? And then the second question to that follow-up is AI running on the GPUs?
We've been running ours on the CPUs. The hard part is that you need to build drivers to be able to send the data through your GPU, and those aren't publicly available yet. And that's the same thing we're doing, or same issue we're running into with the neural processing unit. So once the drivers are given out, and drivers are basically instructions for a computer for how to handle a piece of software with the hardware that's there, because NPUs for the most part are so new, there aren't drivers to tell these new models to, hey, use the NPU instead of the CPU or the GPU. So if you went and did some deep dive on how to actually get it to go into those particular areas, you might be able to get it to, but that's going to be a project.
I have a question, Rod. The GPT-4 mini model, have they are they telling us what the difference is between that and the normal GPT-4 model? I mean, the mini is a lot cheaper, but obviously it's called the mini for a reason.
Yeah, so if here you can, this graph here, these are how it benchmarks, and benchmark is really your main difference. It just runs down to raw capability. So it's well above like the 3.5. Like if mini had been released a year and a half ago, it would have taken this industry by storm, just like 3.5 did. The reason 3.5 created such a big buzz was because it was the first of its kind. Whereas today, 3.5 is really seen as a low-end model you wouldn't use for anything.
Would you guess or say that it's taught on a smaller catalog of information?
They don't release their secret sauce on information or how they do it. Most theorize it's more the optimization than it's not a. From my understanding, it's not a retrained model. It's a reconfigured or optimized. So like anytime if you start a new business, right? Yeah, you have your operating system and how everything runs. After you run it a little bit, you learn ways of optimizing. Hey, if I did this differently, if I did this differently, I can make the business run faster and better. They're doing the same thing with these models that as they go and use it a little bit, their engineers look at how it's doing, find out what is taking the huge amount of processing power, and then they'll re-optimize those sections of it and then release a new model. Maybe they'll do a small training section and retrain one area of it, or but they're not doing a full new training model for that. They're right now. OpenAI is working on their 5.0 model from a brand new training model perspective. So all of these like 4.0, 4.0, 4.0 mini, they're all subset. They're all optimized versions of the primary model that they trained.
Okay.
And that's why also Llama 3.1, you have like you have the 8 billion, the 70 billion, and the 405 billion. They're all the 3.1 model that then they optimize them to either be performance with less capabilities or extreme capabilities, but also very expensive from a compute perspective to operate.
Is that the nomenclature, the standard now, where the model number like 4, 5, 6 for GPT is the different designates that it's a different training model?
Yeah, the question was, do the numbers like 3.1 or 4 for GPT, does that represent what model it is? And to my understanding, that is the representation of the actual model that's being utilized for it. Now, again, all these companies, they're in control of what they name it. So, and they're not exceptionally open on what they're doing because, again, this is the secret sauce of what all these companies are doing. That's what makes them worth trillions of dollars and us not. So, yeah. So something I wanted to highlight though is, and it goes back to what we talked about with Elon Musk. So Llama 3.1, which is all these, the 70 billion, the 8 billion, and the 4 and 5 billion, these 3.1 models were trained on 1,600 NVIDIA H1 processors, which a couple talks back we talked about NVIDIA's releasing of this model, and now we're starting to see these companies get these in these hands to start training them. Well, Elon Musk has 100,000 of these. So that's what, 6 times, 7 times more than this Llama model. So with 16,000 of these, they were able to get in the 8s, 8.5 benchmarking perspective. So if you have 5 times as many and you're the largest processor, you should be able to get, and Elon Musk correctly says it, the most powerful AI model in existence, because he has right now the largest supercomputer dedicated only to the training of his model. So it's for XAI. The Tesla self-training model, their dojo, is a separate data center. So this one is being dedicated towards this XAI model, the Grok with a K. So Cooley-Tech internal, I wanted to share some of this. So we were spending about $100 a day on AI usages. So with Sonnet 3.5 and OpenAI, here you see some of it like there's $63 a day and $146 a day when we're doing different trainings or different, we're running analysis on our own internal data. Well, now that we switched over to the 4.0 model, we're at about $3 to $4 a day. So that's a huge cost savings, right? I can maybe get an extra value meal now instead of just the burger when I go to McDonald's. But and so we're doing this where we're analyzing every ticket that comes in, every phone call, every sales call, so that way we can make sure my techs are being friendly. We didn't miss anything on the call. Where some of these tickets we're working on could be 8-9 months long, and because again, if we're doing a major network migration with 5 or 6 different sites and different states, we're scheduling these. Well, the AI will actually go through every email, every phone call, every communication, and give each of my techs a summary at the top of the ticket. Here's everything that has happened, and here's the next action that needs to happen, and here's who you need to call associated to that, without having to scroll through all your email. And we've all had those big projects, right, where you're scrolling through endlessly, tons and tons of emails to try catching up on what on earth happened. If you start talking a year-long project, you have a lot to catch up on and a lot of potential for missing. And while AI is not perfect, no human is perfect either. And when you compare the AI to a human, from what I found, the AI does a better job of analyzing huge amounts of data in a short amount of time. So as long as you're okay with the AI not being perfect, but if perfection is your grade, I mean, none of us would have any employees and we should fire ourselves, right? So yeah, and one of the tools I'm going to hop in here, and we can do this on the call, Aaron, or we can break up into our separate groups if you want to. But this is one of, yeah, I'm just going to hop into it on this call here. So I'll make it quick. And before I end my slideshow, the thing I like to end every group is that, like, every month we're coming to, there's new releases, new models, the AIs we're working on today are the dumbest models we will ever use. They're only getting better, and there's no indication out there that they're going to stop. There's talk that we're hit, or things are slowing down, but slowing down is not stopping. So, all right, any questions before I show you some of the things?
You guys have any questions? No questions on our end here, Rod.
All right, I got one here.
So, you guys wrote your prompt to be able to do that summary?
We'll get into that.
Rod, I have one real quick question for you. I know that we're progressing with AI with the ChatGPT 4 alliterations, but is the AGI going to be separate and different from the generative AI, or is it supplemental to AI? Or
so to reiterate that question so AGI is average general intelligence, where an AI is as smart and capable as an average human on planet Earth. So right now, the main stopping point from an AGI perspective is long process planning. So if you ask any AI an individual question, it can normally do that one step properly. It just can't do a iteration of those steps and come out with a correct solution after 5 or 6 steps. Because again, if you're wrong 10% of the time, after you're at 10 steps, you're way off from where you needed to be. So, and to answer that question directly, I would say what we will see is we'll go into a ChatGPT prompt and it will be AGI, but there isn't a clear definition of that per se, because if it's just testing, well, from an IQ test, it beats all of us already. From a single shot, if we're talking, I know I have some HR people on here, from writing HR documents, the HR documents I write, AI does a better job than what I write. If I go and write emails, AI does a better job than what I do. So right now it's limitations. So AGI gets a little, I think, confusing on there isn't a clear definition of, it's not like we're going to cross the certain line and boom, we see the AI. So I guess I'm talking out loud and monologuing a little bit, but I would guess, I'm going to completely flip. I think it is going to be a general that eventually we're going to see it do 2 steps correctly, then 3 steps correctly, then 4 steps correctly. It'll just slowly, eventually, one day we won't even realize that, hey, we've been working with AGI for 6 months now. And even as we get closer to that, they keep moving the definition. Like, well, until it can do what Einstein can do, until it can identify its own math or create its new, it's not real. So yeah, it's about as wishy-washy, I guess, as a direct answer as I can give. Does that? Did I confuse anyone thoroughly enough?
no, you're about the same place that I thought it was. So,
All right.
Thank you.
So let me explain what this is. So this is our sales calls for when we're doing trying to set appointments, and we do our mailings, and then we have people that are calling them like, hey, did you get our $2 bill in the mail? And they're like, no, we didn't get that, or yeah, we did, and we're not interested. They hang up on us, all that fun stuff, right? It's just part of just standard business. So what I created a tool here is, first we're recording all of our calls, and then we have the ability to, where's my button? Here we go. I download all those calls from where we're recorded. We go and transcribe them. And then I have an AI review the transcription of all of those calls. And for that, here's my prompt I'm using. So like, view transcription. So this here is what we get out of the transcription. It tells me who it is. Andy's the guy who at our company does our calling. Looking for Scott. So it's pretty, here we're asking, did you see the $2 bill? And then we get an AI review. So here we hashtag, we identify did the mailing make it to the individual? So right now we're sending clear packages with $2 cash bill in it. And based off our numbers that we're seeing here, about 60% of those actually get to the person we're trying to call, which isn't too bad from a marketing perspective.
Can you go a little larger on the text, Rod? Sorry, just so it's a little easier to see. It's a little harder on our end here. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Excellent. So here we see like the receptionist, who it was, Andrew, the caller. So it breaks out, it can rip apart that call and correctly identify without even any context in the text who was making the call. And the AI fills in all the gaps that it might have missed. And we put recommendations on how could this have been a better sales call. And to get that, we have this prompt here. And for the longtime members of the group here, we've gone through a couple different prompt engineering, both for our chat bot. And so I'm basically just taking what we did with the chat bot and moved it to the next level where we have an actual call assessor and just auto does the same type of thing here. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to, here's our prompt that I'm using for this. And the prompt itself, first phase, I wanted to identify the outcome. So was it a successful appointment? Did we get to the decision maker? Do they have current IT? Is it the wrong name? Did we leave a voicemail? Is there no data? And that might mean the transcription was bad, or maybe they hung up right away, or I just want it flagged, the ones that, all right, why aren't we getting data? So I can, that's more my debugging there. I can go and find that. Did they recently switch IT? Because in our world, the first 6 months of onboarding is normally the most painful. So we would actually try, if we find out they just recently switched IT, we're going to call them quite a bit more over that next 3 to 6 months. Like, hey, if things aren't going great, give us a call. Even though, just for everyone's transparency, the first 3 to 6 months with any new IT provider is the roughest because they're learning everything, they're ripping everything out. But sometimes the other company isn't transparent about that on the front side, and they promise everything's going to be super smooth, and then we get an opportunity to swoop on in there. So anyway, you guys don't really care that much about that, but not interested. So here's where we got to the decision maker, and they're like not interested. Well, I can listen to why weren't they interested, right? Did our salesperson actually properly address their, because they may like, well, hey, we don't have any computers. Well, yeah, they should probably take it off our mailing list, right? Or they're like, hey, we only have one computer. That's not really a primary target for us. Lost mailing or scrubbing. So here it looks like the call is just to get the stuff for mailing. That's why I want to have a different analysis. And then this here is the geeky stuff, but I wanted to output it in what's called a JSON format for us. So that way my computer program can read it. But that's the prompt. And on this tool here, if anyone goes and changes these out, we have the ability then to see, or I can add new ones and reassess all the tools if I want. Just like what I've been doing is I have about 500 calls from the last month that we have in here. So I'll go and run my assessment on all 500 and then look at the summary of the data and then identify, no, I need to tweak my prompt a little bit. Then I go and rerun it again. That's how I get sometimes where I'm doing like $150 a day in API usages because I just keep deleting, rerun, delete, rerun. So when I'm analyzing 500 phone calls, and I have a couple other peer IT companies in different areas of the country where I'm doing this for them as well. So that way I can get a number of different companies' assessments, and we're actually grading each other against each other. So here we're seeing these are 3 different IT companies that for our cold callers that are doing it. And this is how often each of us are getting voicemails. This is how long each of us are getting wrong names. Lost mailing. This is a newer tag that I put in there. I haven't ran it against them, but here's switching IT. How often are they getting a successful appointment? So this will allow me to benchmark myself against other peers in my industry. Like, hey, are our salespeople and our marketing people doing what they should be doing? Are we getting on car? But the beauty of this and the real power of this is that it doesn't require any action on the people doing the job. The people can just do the work, and then I get all the analytics of it. Whereas many companies that I talk to, they're trying to make sure that their salespeople are writing on a paper or an Excel sheet. How many calls did you make? What do you feel the chance of closing and stuff like that? Where this just looks at the data that's actually being used and gives you the summary of it. So, or it gives you analytical data on that. So yeah, this is where we've seen a huge improvement. All right, hold on, let me a huge improvement in savings of cost with the 3.0 model or the mini model, and how I know the mini model is on par with the major one. So if you're not doing software dev, so another thing I'm going to highlight, this entire tool was built 99% with AI by me. So I have my software developers, if you are up in that room up there, we have a team of software developers, but I don't want to waste their time doing these little projects on mine because I'm the one using this. Now, as I've gotten more of it, I had my brother Tim is our head developer. I had him hop in here for like 2 hours to fix a couple things that I just wasn't able to get fixed. But 99% of this code, and this is a 7,000 line code project, which is a medium-sized project, but the AI can understand and consume the entire project. And anytime I want to go ahead and have it do something, it normally in 1 or 2 shots can tell me exactly where in my 50 different files I need to go ahead and edit it so it will work correctly for it. And on that point, our buddy Aaron, who has never developed a day in his life, made himself a tic-tac-toe game last night. Isn't that right, Aaron?
Yeah, tic-tac-toe, and actually you didn't know this too, but I also created, I'm not quite completely finalized it, but a Connect 4 game as well. So.
Nice. So these type of tools are opening up our abilities for non-developers to actually start doing lightweight software developer. Now you're going to have issues like the tools that you're building are probably going to work, but they have no security associated to them. Like every time Tim hops into my things, he's like, well, here, we need to add this in here. I'm like, oh, that's visible from the front end? He's like, yeah. So anyway. So at this point, we can, if there aren't any questions, we can probably break up into our different session and the online team members can stay with me. Or is there anything else that you think we should hop into, Aaron?
Hold on here. Maybe we might have one question.
Like, where are you building that at?
Oh, yeah. So the question was like, for people who haven't done any developing or, they want to do that, like, where are you building that stuff when you're doing it?
Yeah. So what I shared with Aaron last night, actually here, because he was asking the same exact question. How do you get it so that way I can actually start testing some of these things? You can literally just open up a notepad. So let me. So everyone's probably seen Notepad before, right? And if you don't, you just press Windows, Note. There, and then here's your Notepad. You just go ahead and copy the code into there. Go File, Save As. Go Desktop. So if I just click Save, and I already have one, it's right here. But you put the .html at the end, that tells your computer it's a web file. Then if I open it up, it says Aaron is awesome, right?
Rodney?
Oh, I didn't even notice that it misspelled Aaron. My bad.
Rodney, if I can make the suggestion, Notepad++ is a nice tool to use because it gives the color coding when you save the file format for structure.
Yep. Yeah, and I told Aaron that too. I just wanted him to be able to get going with something without having to install anything. So yeah. with everyone's computer where it's at right now today, you could go ahead and do this. Note++ is a great second step that once you get, you're like, hey, I can make it used to be called a hello world, but whatever. And you can Google hello world. There's 1,000. It's normally everyone's first piece of code. Well, this allows your first piece of code to be a little more advanced. So we can go ahead and, can you update this to say hello, awesome workshop people? And this is a summary. This is, for the most part, how I do almost all my development. Now, I use Claude, but I think Claude is a little more capable, and it has, yeah. Yeah, development. More people are familiar with GPT-4o though, so like for these talks, I like to do that. So if I copy this, then I just go, sorry, I shouldn't have done it that way. So what I did is I press Control A, it highlights everything, right? And then I press Control V, and it pastes my new code in there. But you could also do the same if you wanted to with File New, or you go and drag and highlight everything. And then I save it. Or you can press Control S. So everything I did there, and I realized I shouldn't do that in a talk, I just press Control A, Control V, Control S, and also the new code is there. But that doesn't help show anyone anything. So if I refresh this, there. Hello, awesome workshop people. My code now says this. And not that anyone cares, but I'm throwing it in there anyway. I have it in an encoded message because I didn't want Aaron to see what the text was before I started. So this actually goes and decodes or de-encrypts this encrypted key to this word here. That's way fancier than anyone would ever need to do, but when I gave him the code, I didn't want him to see it. It said it was awesome. I wanted to be a little, hey, this is neat. So I just but I had to, I'll break. So you see my entire, in fact, I'll put this in the chat here. I think I can, yeah, create a link. Copy link. So I think if anyone clicks on that, they should be able to see exactly how I did that. Did that work? Anyone want to test it and just verify for me?
Yeah, I am. Give me 1 second here. Although streaming and doing this here, it's being a little slower than normal. Oh, come on. All right, yeah, somebody else was able to get to work. Mine is just taking a little bit to load up.
All right. Yeah, so this will give you the exact. And what you can also do is, like, let's say you're sitting here and you have no idea how to do this, right? You can say, I am brand new. Could you give me step by step how to get this to work on my computer?
One comment, while you're doing that, one comment Sean just highlighted, and he's 100% accurate, is you would pay research firms big bucks to do some of this stuff before these tools. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, even like that call analysis. If anyone is in customer service, normally you'll do 2 or 3 on an employee a month, where you sit there and manually listen to the recording, and a manager might see 10 or 20 customer service reps, and they're spending a whole day just listening to recordings, doing those assessments. But yeah, here's Note Plus, text editor if you're Windows, but like Sean mentioned, Note++ is a good one. Visual Code Studio, if you want to advance your skills a little bit, but yeah, just getting started, Notepad is a good one. Or if you're on a Mac, I'm not on a Mac, but Text Edit, I assume I got 2 Macs in the corner here. You guys have heard of that before? All right. And then yeah, just paste your code in there. And then again, it gives you the step-by-step that we were talking about. So it wants you to do index.html. I did Aaron.html, but the file save as type, change that to all, put HTML in there. So all the things I just showed you how to do, but this is if you're sitting there, you're like, I can't get this working. And something else I do a lot, if I'm playing around with these little things. So if you go inspect element, and they'll go click on your console. Like right now, I don't have any bugs because it's not doing anything. But if you start playing around with JavaScript and you're like, why isn't this thing working, or why it'll oftentimes throw some type of error in here, and you just copy and paste this error into the AI, and it will tell you how to fix it. Any other questions before we break up into separate groups?
Are we gonna go over Copilot and remove that?
We can. All right, I think we're good here, Rod. So I'll let you go with the online folk and Holman Group, and we're gonna just do some live stuff here in town house. So you guys have a good one.
Sounds good. Hey, Aaron, you want to stop the recording too, and that way we don't get a well. So we just upload that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna.